Okay. Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Hooper, seconded by Councillor Elliott, be resolved that council adopts the 2025 wage grid as presented. Excuse me.
All those in favor? Scary.
Are we
Don't
doing a
you want to
recorded
record
vote?
vote?
Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry about that.
You want to record it? Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Bowerman,
I'm opposed to it.
Councillor Elliott,
Yes,
Councillor Hooper,
Yes.
Mayor
Yes.
Reed.
Yes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're going to go on to our budget deliberations now. So. I don't know, I've been through the budget again. There's one thing I would like to look at is donations again. Does anybody, just so I know, does anybody have anything they want to look at on top of that? Is there an area that you want to discuss? Okay, let's go to.
so,
So I've had quite a while to think about the donations and I'm going to be speaking about the curling club and the robotics. So if you wish to declare pecuniary interest, you may do so.
I'll have to declare for robotics.
Should spell it out for you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll speak to the curling club first then. Pardon?
I'm sorry, what page is that on?
25.
25.
I think I should declare a conflict for the curling club.
Okay. We just get both written up. So the curling club has had the luxury of not paying taxes for quite a few years, probably upwards of 10. 2 years ago, we told them that was enough, that we weren't doing that anymore. And then they got a letter that year saying that wouldn't happen again. Last year, they had to pay their taxes. This year, they're asking for a donation again. When you take people's taxes in the township to help another individual or group pay their taxes, that is not, in my opinion, that is not a donation. That is a subsidy, and I don't think we should be subsidizing a private club. So I would like to remove that donation. I think there's other places that money can be spent in ways that we need it. And as far as the robotics go, the first year that we gave them a donation, I mean, they were on their way to the States. It was a brand new club. They had been working hard, but they weren't really all that organized at the time. 3 years later, I think they are organized, and I think they're all old enough to start supporting the club that they are in. So again, I would cancel that donation too.
I guess the other two have,
So they can speak to opposite ones. Janice can speak to robotics and Jen can speak to the curling club. So, but do you want to go first?
I agree. I don't think we should be subsidizing them, and I have talked before about not doing that. I was coming to the table tonight with the proposition that if they were going to get these donations, there should be some service back to the municipality. So for the robotics, I was thinking of painting the section of the highway from the wayside corner to the bill. It's a municipal council, it's a council section. We'd never really actually get a chance to do it. Nice to see if we could have somebody else do that. As for the curling rink, I had thought that if we were gonna maintain their taxes at $5,000 for this 1 year at a cap, that they'd have to offer two children's programs throughout the winter to educate younger children on curling.
Okay,
That was just my suggestions on that. Manitoba Streams is another one that's listed there. We had asked for a climate.
Impact report study.
And we'd asked if they take over Phragmites, and we haven't got a result on either of them. So again, you're subsidizing a company with another individual to be in the municipality.
okay. Jen, do you want to speak to that?
I cannot speak to robotics,
No,
just making sure everybody heard that. But, as for the curling club, I personally feel like they are a private club, but they offer a great deal to our community. I again would like to see them do more to kind of lower their, assessment. But they have that great big building, and I do think that they need to do more to utilize it. But I realize, just like everybody else, we're an aging society. And so it's getting more and more difficult to get the volunteers like they've had in the past. I support that. But I do like Dwayne's idea of seeing if even we can maybe utilize the building at some point. I don't know for what, but I do like that idea, but I think we should support that. As for the Manitoulin Streams donation, we do already offer them a fairly low rental rate for the use of the basement. I believe we pay for the cleaning. The hydro is covered. Yes. And so that's a pretty decent rental rate for the use of that, even if they're only using one office, nobody else is utilizing any of that basement area. It's just for them. So I think we're already subsidizing them enough with a very low rental rate.
okay. Yes.
So I declared the conflict for the curling club. As far as Dwayne mentioned, whatever donation we give, robotics or whatever, as long as there's some type of service back to the municipality, I really like that idea. So,
Mhm.
and I do agree with Jen about the Manitoulin Streams, that I think the amount of rent and the hydro's included, cleaning's included, which I didn't remember, but that's quite a donation already in itself, so.
The low rental that they're paying,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
okay. So. I guess what we'll have to decide then, so. Let's talk about Manitoulin Streams first, because I think that might be the easiest one, so. The donation is 2,500, yeah, okay, right. So would you like to get rid of that one then?
Are we allowed to say what the rental rate is? Like, or is that? Yes, just so that the public can hear what we're talking about, because it's certain factors, and I think are they
$1,300 a month,
there's 1,300 a month?
plus the telephone they pay.
They paid on telephone, but that includes their hydro, and that includes HST,
Yeah,
that includes the HST monthly. So,
And cleaning.
And cleaning
and
and
cleaning
snow removal.
and snow removal. So for anybody who's rented a commercial space, so they're basically paying about 900 a month, 800 and something a month. Do you take out all the extra costs? Would it work out to be about, so 1,300 hydro costs would be fairly minimal down there, but there's heat, hydro.
Oh, you mean it's like that, if they had, and the extra would have been what they would be paying,
Yeah.
To make
so
up the
I'm-
13,
And
right.
you take off the HST,
Right.
right? So I think that's plenty of subsidy, and I just, like I said, I don't wanna sound unfair, I just want the public and our ratepayers to be able to hear what the breakdown is when we're making this decision, because it's not that we're just yanking, we're already giving them a very good deal on the rental.
okay,
No, we were paying $5,000 last year. Were we not in a donation?
Mhm.
2 years ago. 2 years ago,
Two
they
years ago.
reduced it down to 2,500.
Are you in agreement with that, Dwayne? Or,
I don't wanna see it all go away. I'd like to see them still get some bit of a donation from us because they do offer some decent services and for the island. And
in our township, actually.
and if the place isn't rented, then it's just another spot that we have to, the ability to store stuff. So,
Did we raise the rent last year?
No.
No. When was the last time the rent was raised?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Would-
I'm not sure we've raised it in the last two terms of council.
Would that be included in the 10% increase on all the revenues we were talking about?
It can be, it certainly can be. However, the issue of when it goes into effect, to be fair to them, to spring it on
Absolutely, yeah.
halfway through the year. I think you could talk about telling them that in 2026 it's going up a minimum of 10%
Mhm.
would be fair.
6 of one, half dozen of the other, though, not $2,500.
Mhm.
So we raise the rent or we take away.
Or we take away this, yeah, it basically it's the same.
I think we had already talked about the donations. I say leave them as is and just what Dwayne said, let's get a service out of it for everybody that, is getting a donation. Let's get that service back.
I really think we need an answer on the Phragmites. We had the lady did a lovely presentation for us. He's retiring and we are going to have a problem with.
We are going to have a problem.
A big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be more inclined to support the $2,500 with no increase in rent. If I can have an answer that they're gonna take over the Phragmites project.
Okay.
Again, if we're handing out donations, I think there should be a little bit of money in the game for the rest of the people that are receiving the funds.
The first two that I started with, I'm still opposed to both of them. I don't think we should subsidize private clubs, I'm sorry. So we're kind of at a state.
We're kind of at a standstill. I know we had made the decision last year to deal with the curling rink, and this is what they come back with, and I would support not having a reduction in them, and I would remove the $300 for robotics unless they're willing to maybe do the highway cleanup or something, but then that, and children on highways, I don't know how that else gonna work, so. Would you remove the bluegrass also then? That was just added in this year for $500?
Oh, I forgot that one was in there, sorry. Yeah,
I think we have to take a hard look at some of the stuff because we're in a situation where we're gonna have a significant tax increase for the country if we don't. So if we don't make these changes now, it's gonna make a higher increase to the taxpayers.
well, I think with the curling club too, I mean. It's just waffling back and forth. We made the decision. I think we should just stay with the decision. I certainly do appreciate the fact that they're here and that they're available and. It's a good place for people to curl, like, it's a sport that they enjoy, but on the other hand, I don't think it's right that we take people's taxes to pay other people's taxes. It's not a donation that if they were needing a new chiller or they were needing something like desperate and they were like, geez, could you give us a donation? That's a donation. Helping people to pay taxes, it's not really a donation.
True.
So can we scrap that one then?
Yes, let's remove that one.
Okay, Jen,
I'm not in agreement.
you're not in agreement with that?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so, and you're, so. Still 2-1, it's still a quorum, right?
Yes.
Yes, so we'll scrap that one. And then robotics. Guess we could leave it in there and offer it as a donation that they want to work for.
Yeah, what they offer, if they aren't able to accommodate, then we'll just,
I can look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You okay with that, Janice?
Yeah.
Okay,
$300, I mean,
okay. I just want to talk about horticulture for a moment too, because it always goes into the donation list. I don't know where else to put it, and yet in reality, it's not really a donation. It pays for our flowers.
it's an expense.
Yeah, it's like an expense to the township. So, and that one, like we appreciate the fact that they do the work so much on that. It's just, I don't want people to get hung up like horticulture is getting like a donation of that much, but it's not really a donation. It's an expense to the township.
Is there a way to move that to a different section that goes under some kind of public works fund? Because really that pays for our flowers around
Mhm.
town. So is there a way that we could make that change in the budget so that it reflects that?
Move it into parks.
Move it into parks? Does that make sense to me?
It does in parks.
Rather
yeah.
than have a donation?
You okay with moving that too?
yeah,
Okay. Okay,
That brings me, the budget is basically a working document. We've proven by 3 things tonight. We can move anything around at any time.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
we,
oh,
in the 100 years that the staff in this office have worked in municipalities, nobody's ever come in with a balanced budget.
no.
I've never seen a balanced budget, ever.
there's always either a little bit money short, a little bit money over.
Yeah.
In different places. The thing is, we still have to pass a budget though, because a budget is just that, gives you an idea of where you're spending your money, right? And right now, we're at 9% increase in our budget. And I don't have any other places to cut, so. If any of you know where we can do this, then.
I have
Yeah.
a couple of ideas. So like I said, I wrote this down because I didn't want to forget anything. So basically, it's a document that we can move things around. You're saying 9%, I thought it was 10%, but either way, I think that's really high. This goes against affordable housing, and I think it deters people from Assiginack instead of attracting them to Assiginack. There's a few things on there. The cell phone, Jen had mentioned that they could claim that as a tax deduction. But I also think staff should be refusing to deal with ratepayers unless they call the office during office hours. No staff should be putting up with anybody texting them, calling their personal cell. I think that should be stopped.
Right, no, I agree.
Yeah. We could use the funds that are in the BMO or post office building. We don't own that building. We can use those funds for an expense. I mean, that's 231,000. That's equal to a 7.7% tax right there. We don't own that building, 231,000. Let's use that for some of these expenses. The CBO mileage, I brought it up a couple times. That's 6,100 annually, plus we pay the bylaw officer to go to the sites for the CBO. That has to be fixed. All these small expenses, if we can eliminate them, we could probably get our tax increase down to, I don't know, 3 to 5%. I said it before, I'd like to see a 5% decrease in spending for each department. Give it a goal. I mean, again, it can change. Let's give each department head here, can you cut your expenses by 5%? It might be little things that can be cut out, buying water on sale for $2.99 instead of $6 when it's not, I don't know. I'm just saying if you give somebody a direction to cut their expenses by 5%, I bet you they could. If we just go, don't worry about it, nobody's gonna worry about it. All of that would bring all this stuff in to not needing a 9 or 10% tax increase.
Okay. Wayne?
cell phones obviously is one that's over $6,000 a year. And again, I do know what people do use their cell phones in day-to-day business. It's just the way the world is. Again, we're cutting a lot of donations this year, and I think cell phones shouldn't be included in this year's budget as part of the increase. I'm not against it, the money's not there, and we're at a 9% increase, so remember, we can save a few dollars this year and maybe next year we can revisit it. So. I would remove that one. We had talked again about 10% increase on all the rentals, et cetera, across the board. The $2 for the tax bills. We're gonna look at doing email invoices for tax bills and water bills instead of the paper copies.
Mhm.
We haven't got any results on that yet.
I've got a quote on that.
Okay, so let's do set here, town tax bills, what's the quote on that?
It would be 2,500 a year. Annual subscription, which allows up to 5,000 transactions a year. And then the setup fee would be almost 3,000.
How many transactions would we do a year, $2 a piece? Water bills, and tax bills, how many times do they go up?
Tax bills go up twice a year, so 1,600 approximately each time, so
3,600 water bills?
300 a month. And then water and capital load,
300 water bills a month,
probably about there, and about 300.
so another
month?
3,600.
A month.
So you're looking at 7,200, is that 7,200 millions a year? That's
It's probably close to that.
3,600 taxes and $300 a month.
Another 3,600.
7,200
7,200.
Yeah, what was the job?
at $2 a piece. That's $14,000. So your setup cost is $3,000 with a monthly fee, a yearly fee of $2,500.
1,200, which only allows up to 5,000 transactions a year, so if we got over that, then I don't know what the bump up would be, but
It's.
But there will be a bump up.
how over 5,000?
Yeah.
Yes, but we're looking at about, at $2 a piece, it'd be $14,000. So 5,000 transactions is $2,500. So over 5,000 transactions, not gonna cost you $12,000, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You're still gonna have a little bit of mail in because people, obviously they're gonna be
Absolutely.
able to opt in and out,
Yeah.
right? But yeah.
All the corporations are doing it, they're $2 for your, it's.
We can
Just
implement the
security.
fee for that, to cover that. If you want your paper bill, you pay $2.
Mm.
We had discussed it, what's your opinion?
I think it's kind of a no-brainer. I understand you're still gonna have some mailing out, but I think once people get into the habit of it, that's certainly, it's gonna save the township money. I don't know why we wouldn't at least try. Because over how many years, it's gonna save a lot of money.
It's the way of the world and the way the world's going, so I don't think it's
Yes.
going away.
Agreed.
And obviously, there's gonna be a few people who are gonna be upset and want their paper bills, but, in another 10 years, you're not gonna have paper bills anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to start sometime,
Yeah,
but where would it fit in the budget now? To do the setup fee?
you mean where would we get the money?
Would be
Yeah.
offset by the cost of mail out.
Or we just took out all the money for the cell phone?
But I think we were discussing trying to get that 9% down. So
Yeah.
is this a setup fee that would be over and top the budgeted amount for mailing out and that sort of thing, or would we include this in
By the
that?
time, like, we're already halfway through the year, almost, by the time,
The
We
next
get-
tax bill.
Yeah, the
Everything's
next tax bill will
set
be
up.
gone.
yeah,
It'll
So-
be next year's.
it'll be next year before it
Yeah.
makes a difference.
But we need to make the decision now,
Right.
because next year we'll have the same problem.
Yeah. Well, we can make the decision.
Also, did we get any results on that water meter up at the Public Works? Because the amount that we collected, what was that? Do you remember that, Deb? How much we collected at the water meter?
I think we average about 6,000 a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, it's more than paid for itself several times over.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, we definitely need it there, but my thought to that is if we offer tap or something and then. Cause I know one of the other townships is at Billings, they've substantially increased what the water cost at that. To fill up your big tanks or your little tank. It's quite a bit higher now.
Yeah, and what is it to fill now? $2 for the whole bin?
Yeah,
And that,
I filled that great big square one, I couldn't tell you how much water's in it, but it cost me $3. That's cheap.
that's very cheap considering how much I pay for my water.
Probably, yeah,
Yes,
no argument, but at the time it was put in place, there was a regulation, I think it's still in place, so I am very curious how Billings is doing it. You could only charge the actual cost of setting up that particular delivery,
yeah,
because we had wanted to substantially increase it, we were told we couldn't.
yeah, I'm not talking about substantially,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that it's never been increased. And I believe when we started, Brenda, you had, I remember you commenting that you wanted to keep it at that price because people had to go pick it up and that sort of thing. But, I think certainly across the board, we're trying to keep costs low for people, the dog tags, but these things have to increase. If we're increasing what we're, our wages are, those sorts of things, then we must increase everything too. It only makes sense.
I didn't say that I wanted to keep it low so that because people had to pick it up and such.
Yeah.
What I said was, we needed to take a look at the cost of what they call the cost of making water.
Yeah.
That's what we can charge up there, okay? So if we can take a look at the cost of making water,
Mhm.
I don't think it's substantially increased, but we can take a look at that.
just that it might be an idea, I know if I went from $3 to $5, no big deal. If I went from 3 to 30, I'd be like, whoa.
Oh, yeah,
But-
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
$5 to fill up a tote like that is
Mhm.
nothing.
And that's what, if we had the tap, you could have, I don't know, $1, $2 and $5 tap, I don't know.
Yeah,
Cause we also pay money to deposit that coin in the bank.
Anyway,
Yeah, I don't think we need to be making money off of it, but we don't need to be providing the service that we're losing money on.
no, agreed.
and basically that's what I'm saying, we've been subsidizing a lot for a long time. And so we have to kind of look at
Everything.
everything.
We'll take a look at the cost of making water.
Now, last fall, we had some questions about stacking sand. And there was a 30% reduction in the amount of sand or something. And we were told that we would get a dollar figure of how much money that saved.
We can do that, I have it, but you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
And that money was transferred into reserves at the end of the year, was it not?
yes,
In roads, was it transferred specifically for sand purchases moving forward?
It's in this public works
Yeah.
reserve.
It was it $30,000? Or was it 30%?
I was 30%, I think, if
Okay.
memory serves correct, he reduced it by 30%.
Could-
Yeah, we will,
Because it was a savings, we should pull it out and use it as actual, it was saved from last year, we should be putting it towards. Some sort of tax savings this year, I think.
okay.
Okay,
I believe, and we had talked about the marina, increase at the marina. And Deb was gonna get a comparison for marina slips for the.
I thought it was in there at last.
Was it with the
update.
last one?
It's been done.
Uh-huh.
It was in the last update. Yeah,
Okay,
it wasn't full time though. It was full time for 3 days a week, was it, Deb, or do you remember?
not the person that was working. there.
Oh,
no,
The cost- the
But
cost per seat.
but
You're looking at
yeah,
10%.
Yeah, because the
Oh.
minimum elsewhere was $70 per foot. And we increased ours from 50 to 55 based on that 10%
Okay,
policy going forward.
okay.
and I believe that's already in the budget, isn't it, Ted? Yeah,
Okay. And our website come in on budget that we're working on, 25,000?
Lower.
Lower,
A little bit?
yeah.
That's really all the notes that I had, on that, again, one of the big ones was the Phragmites. But yeah, where does that leave us at a percentage for taxing this township?
One. I mean, what you told us here saves a little bit, but I wouldn't,
It's gonna make.
not gonna make a huge difference, no.
I'd like to discuss the PEC budget again. To explain again, so the amount for PEC for the budget was, is it 56,000? 66,000?
66.
And so we take that money, if there are grants that are achieved, then they're applied against that, is that correct?
Yeah.
So we budget for 66,000 and include that in the tax rate, but it's not necessarily gonna end up that, and then whatever's left over gets moved into the reserve.
Reserves, I have in the revenues, 34,000 to come out of reserves. If we get grants, that money doesn't have to come out of reserves.
Okay,
So it's basically already accounted for there.
It's not part of the increase.
okay, well, just, I don't understand why we need to have a huge reserve like that for PEC events. That's a large amount of money
Mhm.
for a reserve. And I understand, that, like I understand we have to save money and I understand that, I just don't think it doesn't seem equal to me, what we're saving for different things.
And that's fair. I
Yeah.
mean, that's legitimate. It just reflected in the fact our policy's always been a surplus at the end of the year gets allocated to
Mhm.
that department's reserves. So there's going to be some that gradually creep up like that.
Yes,
Whereas we have like issues like public works or fire department, we never catch that break on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So if you want to look at a policy to adjust that, no problem at all.
I absolutely do, because I think,
Yeah.
like I said before, I think saving money is great. But when there are things that so desperately need to be done in our community and we don't have the money through tax dollars, we need to be looking at some of these excess reserves and saying, okay, do we need to have this, and can we, fix those terrible piles down at the beach with some of that money? Or, I'm not thrilled with the 9% increase. I'm trying desperately to find where we can make some cuts so that we don't have to put that on the ratepayers. I think that that's just too high. But again, to find that chunk of money that's gonna be substantial enough.
Well, we've gone so many years without raising taxes, and the money that should have been coming to the municipality to do something with has been offsetting the increases from DSAB and the manor and
Mhm.
et cetera, and this is the year when it's run out, there's no money there,
Yeah,
so. I mean, I hate 9%, I'm not happy with it either, but that's where we are.
So why don't we use the post office building reserves since we no longer own that building? That's like I said, equal to 7.7% increase.
Right, what do you think, Wayne?
Well, I know that we're still sitting with engineers regarding the construction of the fire hall. And I would like to have seen that money be redirected to the budget item for the fire hall. Or into the fire hall capital budget. That's already at 100,000, so that'd bring it up to $300,000. And move forward with the construction of the fire hall. A lot of these line items, like you had mentioned, the PAC budget and stuff. Some of that, again, you said the budget is fluid, so, if we have a major chiller or something break at the arena, we do have funds available to fix some of this stuff. I don't wanna rob Peter to pay Paul here, with all the increases that we've had from the police services, the manor, ESEP. We can't continue, we don't have any money for capital expenditures for the township anymore. And I'm afraid that if we start chipping away at all these little reserves, we won't have anything left in a couple of years. And we have our auditors come in and they tell us how great a job that does for us. And how well we're set up that if we could last so many months with no money coming in, and I don't think the amount of reserves is extravagant to the amount of protection it offers us at this time. So I wouldn't want to see us necessarily. Again, all you're doing is moving numbers around the page if we reallocate it right now.
I agree with you, but. What do you think, Jen?
Oh, well, I'm just looking at, like, the arena has a healthy reserve. It for an emergency, like if you're comparing the PEC reserve. At, 129,000. And the arena reserve at 365,000, if something was desperately needed, there's certainly plenty in the arena reserve. You don't need to use this.
Part of the arena reserve is our portion of the ISIP grant, so it's
Um,
not,
It's gonna get spent.
it's gonna get spent.
How much is that there? Do you remember?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
130.
That sounds right.
I agree with that too, with Dwayne, because if you think about it, we don't have an over amount of reserves. However, what we do have is the ability to borrow from them, like for our fire trucks, snow plows, things that we need. We don't have to go to the bank for that. We can borrow from ourselves. And that helps us a lot with interest and stuff. So I like to keep our reserves. I hate touching reserves. I don't like if we build a fire hall, the reserves are there for the fire hall, then obviously they come out for that. And I wouldn't be opposed to using the money from the post office for that either. But just to pull it out willy-nilly so that we can artificially, and I'm gonna call it artificially lower what we need this year. Don't like that. And I'm sorry it's at 9%. I hate it. I've laid awake nights up this, gone through the budget everywhere I can, and I not find any savings there. There's none. And if Deb can't find it, it's not there.
Personally, I don't think the PEC budget needs to be 66,000. I think we start with a smaller amount and then apply for grants. And if you get the grants, then great, then you can do the program. Not that I want to cut the program, but I'm saying in any budget, if you can't afford to go out for dinner 4 nights a week, you don't go out for dinner 4 nights a week. And this is the way our budget is right now. We can't afford to have all of the fun stuff and subsidize all of the fun stuff and have every ratepayer across the board paying 9%. If we can cut that PEC budget by a significant amount, that could drop at a percentage, right?
So yes, it is $64,000. But after you collect the money that we charge for user fees and stuff,
It's down to
it's down about $13,000 to run that whole program for the year, which is fairly a substantial program.
For that amount of money.
And I've always been an advocate for outside activities and sports for mental health of our community and for our children. So for $13,000, that's a noble.
You can't just look at the amount, you have to look at the in and out.
That's right.
So even if we cut our portion of it, it's 13,000.
So the budget is 13,000 and it shouldn't be 66,000 in the budget.
66,000 is your expenses, then we have the revenue, 52,000 to offset the expenses, so it only affects the levy by 13. But you gotta show both sides.
I would much rather see us sit down with our new road superintendent and see how many of our roads are currently hard topped that don't need to necessarily be hard topped moving forward. is there savings there that we can go back to greater tar and chip? And get away from the tar and chip and more of the calcium?
I think, well, in my time on council, we've looked at this and it's kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other by the time you grade and take care of a gravel road. At least years ago, when we talked about it, it was basically the same expense of taking care of tar and chipping every 5 years or every 3 years or whatever. Well, right now we're down to, well, like, right now we're at every 6, so we've changed our program a little bit.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
every year, there's a new lift that goes down on every road, every 6 years.
Right. Yeah, and we were between 5 and 7 before, so, some roads didn't get done in a timely manner sometimes. I think the way that we're doing it now evens things out a little bit, and I think you'll see an improvement in the roads.
So New England Road's not tar and chip.
Yeah.
It's fantastic shape this year.
Yeah,
Good.
but remember what it was, 2 years ago?
That's right, but we spent some time and money on it.
Yeah.
So if we're going to continue to spend some time and money on and grade those roads regularly and put calcium on them, it's smoother than Bidwell Road right now. So putting tar and chip on Bidwell and going around and patching it, you know, I'm not saying Bidwell shouldn't be tar and chip, but I'm saying there's a lot of other roads in the municipality that aren't quite as busy, that may not need to be tar and chip. We've got a brand new grader sitting there and we have some guys that are eager to use it. We can save some money on the bigger items.
I certainly don't think there's a problem asking the superintendent for a report on it. Yeah, yeah.
But at chipping away at a $13,000 budget, it's not gonna get us there. Like, we need substantial amounts for savings.
Yeah, and if you look at, our wheel that Deb did it up for us, I thought I had it with me. You know, the wheel where it showed everything where it was, transportation is a huge amount. And,
34%.
yeah. But on the other hand, it covers an awful lot of things in transportation.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you're not looking at just roads.
You're not when you're dealing with all of transportation.
No,
I would still like to see us offset that huge tax increase with the reserves from the post office building, since we don't own that building. All the other reserves I'm fine with.
I would rather see it reallocated within the budget than moved.
what about you, Jen?
Go break it in half, reallocate half, use half of it to offset. It just 9 or 10% is extreme.
Well, if we get looking at, the new fire hall. We're going to be going up again because it has to be paid for. And we don't have enough to cover all of it. So I'm just saying that you might gain a little bit this year, but you're gonna lose it in a couple of years. We need that money. So,
Well, let's sell lots and let's start getting more buildings going and get more tax increases going. More people paying taxes.
you mean the lots that we own?
Yeah. Let's start getting some people that wanna build here.
But that doesn't, a lot of the lots that you provided the list with have issues or hangups.
Yeah.
Like, we have a piece of property we've sold that we're still having trouble with.
We inherit properties because there's issues with them. Like, they don't go through a tax sale because there's an issue with it and we end up with it. And that's a number of the properties on that list. We also have a number of properties on that list that we got because there's no legal access to them. And if the municipality's not gonna foot the expense of building a road, people aren't going to look for it. So we don't have a cache of marketable arm's length sale lots in our inventory. What we have are things people looked at and said, I can't make this work. And so the township ends up with it. We can certainly put a page on our new website saying these are the properties owned by the municipality. We'd be happy to sit down and have a discussion with anybody
I'd like to see
who's
that
interested in
actually.
developing it. But I have no problem with that. Because you never know what's coming out of the woodwork. But we're not sitting on an inventory of prime residential lots that we can release.
Would any of them be a decent sellable lot without any attachments?
Off the top of my head, no.
I think the bigger thing would be if there are title issues and that sort of thing, we have to sort them out. We would have to pay our lawyer to do that end of the work
Yes.
for us as well, which negates the whole value in it.
Yeah.
And some of those lots are worth minimum, like minimal amounts. Would be the problem with that. Not that I disagree with you, just I don't know if the gain is gonna be worth the trouble to do it.
I would support selling them, absolutely, if they were sellable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm certain, I think it's a great idea to say, this is our inventory. If you've got an idea that we haven't thought of, by all means, we'd sit down and talk with
So what
you.
do you mean by no legal access? Cause even a lot sells.
Yes, but when people can't drive to their landlocked lot, we end up getting it 3 years later for taxes and nobody buys it because it's landlocked. And we get all kinds of inquiries about, can I punch a driveway through, can I cut down the trees, and you end up with a road that's not, you end up with a not up to any standards. And in fact, it increases the municipality's liability. We have all kinds of properties that are landlocked in the Assiginack. We
Well,
always have, and there's just not enough impetus to say, listen, if we had, 5 or 6 neighbors agreeing that, yeah, we're gonna develop this. Then you can have a conversation with the municipality on how you put a road in. That's not what people wanna do. People want the municipality to open up a road allowance so they can build their hut camp.
well, some of the landlocked areas too are landlocked by other private
Yeah,
land, and they don't allow the people to cross.
yeah.
But, I mean, we can take a look at it, put it on the website. Not gonna
Sure.
hurt anything.
Sure. If you got time, come in and we'll pull that list and we'll pull the map and because we just don't get those good lots. They go on a snap. Like the people who are really good at tax sales know exactly what they're doing and know exactly how much to offer. And all we get, and we don't even keep the surplus because they know how and when to apply for it. At the end of the year.
Well, look how fast the last
Yeah.
tax sale went, and for the prices, it
Mhm.
was, yeah.
First of all, to the discussion about reserves, again, I have to point out there are lots of issues with the buildings that we have, as I mentioned before about roller mills, that sort of thing. Those need to be addressed sooner rather than later. Hopefully you have some comfort if we can bring that discussion up again after the budget talk is done. To try to do something to remediate the damage that's happening at the Roller Mills building, just in the meantime until something is done, because we have to bring some pride back to the community. And that is an embarrassment on a waterfront, quite frankly, as well as the piles that are left from the dock that was there before. That they're sticking up out of the water. It's incredibly dangerous. I would again, after we're done this budget talk, like to look at the reserves and say, okay, can we do something with what's down there in the meantime until we get a little more cash flow to do things or some grant funds come in. As for the 9%, for each percentage, how much money is it, Deb?
There,
About 30.
30. So the things we discussed tonight would add up to about a 0.5%, right?
mhm.
So that means we only have to find another 15,000 to cut to bring it down to 8, correct? Or am I incorrect?
About that.
Okay, so maybe we could take a look again and see if we can find another 0.5% to bring it down a little bit more. I understand that it has to go, and I think people need to understand what you've said many times, Brenda, that for the COVID years, no one wanted to raise taxes, so it ate into what was available. And now we're in a position, last year, we didn't raise them very much. I was opposed to raising them a huge amount last year. And we're in this spot where we have to do a big jump. But if we can try to squeak it down and get it down, I think that that's only fair to the ratepayer, that we do every possible thing to try to get it down.
So just to go over the 15 that we've saved. I don't have it on my list. Do you have 15,000 saved up? I got the cell phone money, which was about 6,000.
6,
But then you were setting up the tax bills, which was about 55.
Be 3,000 approximately, just the one behind costs to set it up, and then, yeah, another 2,500 for the annual.
So that, yeah, so if we go that way right now, there's,
You need set up.
yeah. And I think that would have to be done this year so that we could start like January of next year. And then start with our tax bills next year going out online. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
So,
that negates that.
yeah, so that negates
So
that.
now we're back looking to find 30,000.
Yeah.
I don't think this is gonna get settled tonight, Brenda. I know you wanted it to, but I definitely think that we had only had 2 discussions on it. And to be able to discuss it around the table is really important, even though we all have our own ideas and opinions. To hear what everybody else has to say is really important. Again, I had my ideas, but everybody's clarified things for me, and I think that it's only fair, and I would really, really appreciate it if our fellow counselor could be here as well for the final discussion meeting, because I think that's only right and fair that all 4 of us are here for it. If we're gonna increase it by that much, I think we need every voice heard.
Then we'll move to the next meeting to our committee of the whole. Although,
You have impact to coming next week.
oh, shoot.
So here's the
This
problem,
budget said.
here's the legal problem. We're obligated to give 20 days notice of the meeting that we're going to adopt the budget. And then we're obligated to give 20 days notice before, so from the day the tax bill goes out until the taxes are collected. If we don't pass it next week, we're gonna have to amend our interim tax rate bylaw and push the tax dates for the second half back.
So can we not have a meeting next week?
Next week is committee of the whole,
Yes,
and Impact's coming
yes,
to do our training session with us.
which they figured 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay,
But all I'm saying is,
Yeah.
we're coming up to the wall, we really have to do this by next
Mhm.
week.
What
That's
about Thursday night this week?
I work every Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I would support waiting until Rob was here, for sure. I think maybe we should look at having one last look at this over the next week. And look at finalizing budget at the next meeting after the impact meeting. And if the meeting has to start at 8 or 8:30, then we start the meeting at 8 or 8:30.
okay, I'm
Because
just thinking dates in my head, sorry. So I was like, so the 20 days from next week would be the 25th, 26th,
24th.
24th. And that's not a meeting night, but I could call a special. Right?
Yes,
We could do Monday night next week. They would have Monday and Tuesday night meetings. I don't know if there's airport Monday, but I had fire practice, I believe, but. There's a fire meeting Monday night.
Monday night's the 3rd,
yeah, Monday night's the 2nd.
the 2nd.
So we'd have back-to-back meetings.
I could do that. Can you do Monday, Tuesday next week?
If it gets it settled, yeah, of course.
I can also,
Okay.
traveling back from Windsor that day, but I should be here in lots of time. I agree, I'd like Rob's input to pass budget. I don't think a week is gonna make any difference. We're either gonna say, yes, we're increasing, or let's use some of the money to offset that. I don't think, but that's just my opinion.
I agree. I don't think you're right.
But
You
I-
get into, we just sat in, at the conference, we sat in a really, really good session, and he talked about using reserves to offset upping the taxes to what we need, like, there's nothing in this budget that is exorbitant, or it's just what we need. And that's the fact of the matter, that we need that money, and to start hacking away at our reserves, when you start hacking away at your reserves, you will end up with no reserves, and you will end up giving them a 50% increase one year when you really need the reserve money.
Except we don't own the building that one chunk that I'm talking about is in.
Exactly, but we are looking at putting up a fire hall. And I don't wanna use that money to offset this
Well,
budget.
we've already paid the engineer numerous times already, and we're hired a new engineer to reevaluate and move forward with the fire hall bill. So to move that money now, you're either moving it, or it either remains in the line item there, or it just gets reallocated in the budget. I don't think it's gonna make any change to your percent of an increase over here at this point in this year.
I agree. So there's no sense asking the question or calling the question that this budget passes at 9%.
I'm not passing it. I'm not agreeing to pass it.
I think it's important to know too, that the rest of the municipalities in the island and the North Shore are all in the same boat as we are. Nobody has a 1 or 2% tax increase this year.
Actually,
Yeah.
I checked with 3 different municipalities, and Mimi did not do 7, they did 3 and 3.5. I actually have theirs. I can't think, I don't have one that came in at 7% or higher.
But did you take a look at all the back years, but I did raise taxes and we didn't?
The other thing is,
Like,
Mimi had,
Look at
that makes
that
a big
last year.
difference.
Mimi had significant growth. They had
Mm.
$10 million in construction. I mean, so in those years, yeah, you don't need the taxes.
Yeah.
We don't have that in the Assiginack right now.
No, our assessment increased by a little wee bit.
Exactly.
It didn't give us enough of what we need. So you take a look at these municipalities, unless you're going 6 years back to see what the actual increase has been over 6 years or 5 years. We had nothing, we had 2%. 2% did not even hardly cover what we needed last year.
No, it didn't. And we should have went with.
We should have went with 5, but
4
we
or
couldn't
5
get
last
5.
Right.
It's not a complete list, it's the best list I could find, and it's probably 30+ days that I highlighted. What's in the same range.
But I honestly, to compare yourself to another municipality, unless the municipality is absolutely identical, we're talking apples and oranges. They don't have the same needs that we have. They don't pay, like, their bills may be similar, but it's not the same.
Well, and we're in a situation where we just got our snowplow. We need another snowplow, and we haven't even thought of budgeting for it yet.
And our backhoe's hanging on by a rubber band.
So there is money in the reserves, so that if something were to happen,
Mhm.
we'd be able to move forward, maybe without getting to budget next year. Through reserves, we
Yeah.
can make a purchase.
We could get this for the island.
Yes.
But we didn't know it would be fast.
Well, I'm just saying, I am not voting. If we're gonna start hacking any kind of reserves, I'm not voting for it.
No, I don't think we need to start hacking in the reserve.
No.
I think there's significant increases that come down from the province, and that's police, EMS, these public health,
School board.
school board.
School board is
So-
part of this. We have no say over any of that stuff.
That's right. So,
What would an increase be with just those things alone, do you know? Off the top of your head?
Off the top, I had, like it took up a fair amount.
Yeah, it's a fairly large chunk.
but there isn't really any budget increase for each of the departments. We're just maintaining what we've always maintained.
Yeah.
We're not asking for more money to have a bigger slush fund.
No,
We just wanna maintain what we've had for the last 5 or 6 years.
And basically, the reason I'm asking is because ratepayers don't have what we have in front of us. So I want them to understand if they're watching, so that they can see, we're talking about the DSAP, all of the
there's a
policing,
DSAP,
the
and
school
then there's
board.
the school board,
Public health.
public health. Did I miss some?
Those are all things that we have to pay into that would make up a, say, 3% or 4% increase in just to start off with before we even do our particular township things. And that's what I'm just trying to make sure everybody understands.
We can put that in the mayor's newsletter too.
That would be, I think that
It
would
will
be
go into
beneficial.
there, yeah, for sure.
So looking at policing, it was 3% just on its own.
There were some funds that offset that though, where
That's included, like that's.
that's
taken right into
that's
account.
taking that into account.
I think the manor come in at 2 again, manor comes in on, tries to keep it at 2 every year. But again, they understand that they need money, so they increase it,
Yeah,
like it's increased.
Ambulance was 6%.
You can't keep offering the same service and not raise the taxes to cover the cost of the service. It just doesn't work. You can't have hydro without paying the increase in the cost. And again, I do not like this budget. I hate 9%, but we don't have an option as far as I'm concerned, so.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'm not happy with the budget, yeah,
No.
but I don't see anywhere else. In the budget that you can make the changes unless you're significantly cutting programs, jobs.
I think I know this budget off by heart. I've been through it so many times. It's just not there.
Mm.
And people want their roads plowed and they want them graded and they want calcium and they deserve all that because they pay their
Sure.
taxes. But we have to have the money to offer it.
How many years did they go with 0% tax increase?
10,
10 years. And that was just before our term when we got in, our,
Mhm.
our last term was 2% increase.
that's right.
So
Well,
it's been a
because
two-
our first year, we offered 0 again, we
Sure.
went with 0. Last year we did 2, and you remember that, and it didn't cover
No,
basically what we needed. So we dropped some stuff off, didn't get done, but the 2%,
so there's been a 2% tax increase in the township of Assiginack in the last 10 years,
11,
11 years.
12, in the last 12 years.
I've said what I have to say, so.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion that we accept the budget at 9? If it fails, we'll come back next
I
week.
can make a motion that we accept the budget at 9%.
Or I'll make the motion and you can second it.
Number 2.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
By Mayor Reed, seconded by Councillor Elliott, be resolved that we accept the budget at 2025 budget at 9%.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Do you get a vote unless there's a tie?
Yeah, I can vote whenever I want.
Okay. I'm opposed.
That's defeated.
So if it got approved, it's done, but if it's defeated, we come back to it.
Yep.
I just want to point out it's not, but we just had this discussion where I felt it was disrespectful to my fellow counselor who just found out this morning that we had this meeting tonight, who may want to have some input. And that's why I suggested waiting until he came back. I would like him to have an opportunity to speak to it as well. And that's why I'm opposed. I understand it has to happen. But I don't want to be disrespectful to him. He had already had plans and he wasn't aware of the meeting. Just want to make that clear.
Okay,
Okay, so next Monday night then? Are you good Monday?
Monday night, 7?
Monday at 7? And then
Check with
Tuesday,
Rob
Tuesday at
and then
7.
confirm.
We'll send an email tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes our meeting tonight.
Moved by Councillor Bauer, seconded by Councillor Hooper, that council adjourns at 7:40. And we create the next council meeting on June, and it's gonna be a special council meeting,
Second.
June 7th.
Okay, all those in favor of that? Oh.